session and all the guests present here today, welcome to the first non-resident Bangladeshi Conference 2007. I, Rizwana Kabir, take the privilege of wishing all of you a very good afternoon. The topic of this seminar is the state and status of trade between Bangladesh and the United States and on pending bills in the US Congress. Now, it is a pleasure to introduce the moderator of this session, Mr. Anisul Haq, ex-president BGMEA. So, sir, would you please do the honor to carry on the session? Thank you very much, sir.
Welcome everybody here, especially the NRBs who has come all the way from all the countries outside Bangladesh, and especially to attend this meeting. We think the initiative that has been taken by the organizers to get all NRBs for the first time in Bangladesh and these sessions and all the occasions that are happening these 3 days would really give a very tremendous impact amongst us, the Bangladeshis, to improve its economy and to improve its relation with our NRBs and our who stay here in Bangladesh. Today in this session, the topic is extremely an important topic, at least for the economy of Bangladesh, because this is the major industry involving, especially with regard to the garments export to United States. The topic is the state and status of trade between Bangladesh and the United States and on pending bills in the US Congress. We all know, we don't have to repeat repeatedly that this bill focuses on our export, especially the garments, which is a $9 billion industry today. Though this year, till today, or till we have the statistics till the month of October, that our garment totally is not doing very good. The export, overall export has fallen. However, the topic which is going to be discussed today is the most important topic, is one of the most important topic for us for this economy. And the topic will be presented by an NRB, Mrs. Shamaruk Mahuddin. I will call her a little later. Before that, I would like to invite our special guests and discussants in the table. First, I would like to invite Dr. Mohammad Nurul Amin, Secretary, Ministry of Industry, the special guest, to be here with me in the chair. Then I would like to invite our special guest, Mr. Zillur Hai Raji, Personal Officer, European Union. Then Mr. Saeed Omar Farouk, Vice President, SA Khalid Group. Few of the guests I still could see they are not here, so I would also request our Honorable ex-advisor, our very renowned economist, Dr. Wahiduddin Mahmud, sir, apni jodi Pashi, Ashta Channa sir, but he will participate with us later on. And the chair of the session, Ambassador Farooq Subhan, if you would kindly say. I would also like to invite the chair of US-Bangladesh Advisory Council, who really takes a great initiative, especially in all the matters related to BGMEA, its effort to get duty-free access in US and its all effort to have good relation with US, especially the US political personalities. Mr. Sabir Ahmed, if you kindly come, sir. There are a few other guests right now. I don't see them here, but whenever they come, they attend here, we will call them subsequently. I would now request Mrs. Shamaruk Mahuddin. I would also like to mention that she's the daughter of Dr. Wahiduddin Mahmud. She's the daughter-in-law of Dr. Wahiduddin Mahmud. And right now, only, I think, how many days? 10 days back? 10 days back. About 10 days back, she got married and we should at least greet her and welcome with a thank you. I invite you to, she will read the keynote paper. I would see also two other guests right now entering. So I request, we have also another guest, Mr. Salam is the Vice President, first Vice President of BGMEA. I would also request him to be He's the acting president right now. What was the name? So, we would request Shamaruk to start her presentation.
Actually,
Your time limit is 20 minutes.
Okay.
And you can speak both in Bengali and English, because I would see only one or two foreign guests, and most of them are from Bangladesh. So you can take the advantage or pleasure of talking both in English or Bengali, whatever you like. Thank you. Please go ahead.
I wanted to just invite Mr. Shabir Ahmed to just say a couple of brief lines about the Bangladesh Advisory Council, and then I'll start off with my talk.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. I'll finish it in a couple of lines. The U.S. Bangladesh Advisory Council was established several years ago and will be based in Washington, D.C. The Council is the only advocacy group in the United States which works with the Congress and the administration to develop a pro-Bangladesh policy by the United States government. That's what we do all the time. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone again, and especially to the U.S. Bangladesh Advisory Council for asking me to speak. I work in Washington, D.C. With the Advisory Council as well as with an NGO called the Global Works Foundation. We work on trade policy issues as it affects developing countries, including Bangladesh. And for the last about a year or so, we've been working on this specific bill that has been raised today, the New Partnership for Development Act. It's a bill that covers the UN-designated LDCs, the least developed countries, including Bangladesh, as well as African countries which are beneficiaries of other trade programs, such as this other trade program called the African Growth and Opportunity Act. So it's all the African countries, some of which are not least developed countries, as well as all the UN-designated LDCs. And this is a really big opportunity for us because, as you all know, Bangladesh has been seeking duty-free access to the US for a very long time, given that garments are such an important export for us, and we pay really hefty tariffs on garments exports. My previous boss, where I worked at the Progressive Policy Institute, did a calculation, and according to his numbers, Bangladesh pays $496 million in tariffs per year for garment exported to the United States. And in comparison, the United Kingdom pays $430 million, which is less than Bangladesh. These are really staggering figures, and I think that we all want to export garments duty-free, and as well as other products duty-free to the US, given that we're such a poor country and we really need the access, and we can't afford to pay so much in tariffs. This new bill has been a welcome development. Mr. McDermott, Representative McDermott, has been the one to introduce it. I actually distributed some copies of a summary of the bill. I don't know if you've all received it, but I can sort of go over what the bill is about. As I said before, it covers the 50 LDCs plus African countries which are not least developed countries, so it would give duty-free access to all of those countries. Plus it would give trade capacity building assistance, which is basically foreign aid money given for countries to trade better. So they would help in areas such as labor capacity building, meeting standards and requirements, infrastructure, and those kinds of issues. And the dollar commitment for trade capacity building is $5 billion, but for the first 5 years, the bill would prioritize African countries to receive trade capacity building. After the first 5 years, other countries would also get capacity building assistance. This is the capacity building and trade, the access together is sort of a great combination for all of these LDCs, which actually are facing really hard difficulties in exporting, even if they get tariff-free access. So just to give an example, Africa, for instance, gets tariff-free access, but for them to export cars to the United States, they pay $5,000 in just transportation costs within Africa before they can export to the United States. So for Bangladesh, we also have some very difficult problems in moving goods, and we need some other help as well. But we've been doing really well in garments, but fisheries and agriculture, for instance, would need help in infrastructure and other areas as well. So this bill would give duty-free access as well as give some foreign aid in these areas to help meet these capacity constraints. I wanted to just put things in context a little bit, how this bill came about. A couple of years ago, in 2005, the BGMA and others were very active in helping introduce a bill in Congress called the Trade Act. It was called the Tariff Relief for Development Assistance Act. And this was given to all the Asian least developed countries which don't currently receive good benefits under the trading schemes. So for instance, we receive the Generalized System of Preferences, which is a preference program for a lot of different countries, 144 developing countries, and non-developing countries that get this access, but Bangladesh gets very limited access under this scheme. So the Trade Act was introduced to give Bangladesh and other Asian LDCs better access, and it included the Asian LDCs as well as Sri Lanka, which was hit by the tsunami right about then. And it was introduced by Mr. Crowley, and I think many people in this room were involved in sort of how to help formulate the bill in a good way. But unfortunately, it didn't go very far in spite of the best intentions. And part of the reason was that African countries were not included in the bill. And in the US, there's a huge constituency for Africa, as some of you may know, starting from the Congressional Black Caucus to churches and development groups and religious groups who really care about Africa. They go to Africa through their missions or aid programs, and they do a lot of good work and really care about trade market access as well. So I think that in any trade bill that addresses the needs of poor countries, it's important to include Africa, and we've been advocating as an organization for that as well. And it looks like in this new bill, Mr. McDermott has proposed the additional benefits for Africa has really generated a lot of support in Congress. So now we have several co-sponsors who have signed on just because Africa is included in the bill. And the prospects are looking quite good right now. Charlie Rangel, who's the head of the Ways and Means Committee on the House side, has endorsed the bill, which was a big step because for someone like him to endorse the bill, it doesn't happen every day. He'll wait until many others endorse the bill and then he'll sign on because he's in an important position in a committee that decides trade issues. So I think the bill has pretty good prospects, and there'll be hearings in January and February on the bill, which will show where things will go. I think in the meantime, though, some of us in the US are working on improving the bill, and I think that I should highlight some of the issues regarding the bill that we should all care about. One is that, on the one hand, we have the African countries within the bill, which is something we all want, but at the same time, some people have argued, including very powerful lobby groups, have argued that Africa's garment industry is going to be obliterated if Bangladesh gets duty-free access or if Cambodia gets duty-free access. So this is something that I feel that is sometimes based on fear, it's not really based on statistics. Bangladesh and Cambodia are also very poor countries. They're just as much deserving as the African countries. Some African countries do face severe constraints in some areas. So for instance, countries like Malawi have issues in trade capacity constraints. We move goods much faster than Malawi does, and Malawi has a higher child mortality rate, so they're very poor and they have some economic issues which are more difficult than Bangladesh's. And some countries in Africa also have really high rates of HIV/AIDS, which are also serious economic concerns. So the bill actually gives Africa more than the other countries, so for more than Bangladesh and Cambodia as well. So for instance, in the area of rules of origin, Bangladesh, if I'm talking about some terms and concepts that are not familiar to you, feel free to ask me later or ask one of these our honored guests. They're happy to answer it, I'm sure. So rules of origin is an area where Africa gets a special benefit. So they're only required to add 25% to their products in value, whereas Bangladesh and Cambodia and other Asian countries are supposed to add 35%. So for instance, if it's a garment product, a shirt, we'll need to add 35% more in value and stitching and other value-added, basically to add value to the piece of garment than Africa would have to, which makes it easier for Africa to export the product. So it gives additional benefits in that regard. It also gives better trade capacity building assistance, which I mentioned before. For the first 5 years, Africa gets more than the other countries. So I think that we should all support that, because I think that we should acknowledge that African countries do have special needs. At the same time, the bill takes sort of a defensive position on the Asian countries by limiting our benefits, Bangladesh, Cambodia, and other Asian countries' benefits to 2007 levels of exports. So for instance, we would get duty-free on only those products we exported in 2007, and for any additional duty-free preferences, we would have to work really hard in other areas. So for instance, we have to basically clean up our entire labor standards issue throughout the economy, which means that we can't have any labor issues in any sector, not just garments, in order to get any additional benefits under this act. I think that on that too, we all want our labor conditions to improve, and we should sort of seek the time from Congress to work on our labor issues. We all know that we have some issues regarding unionization and child labor, and child labor we have improved a lot. There are other issues in other sectors, and we need the time to sort of work on those and get the additional benefits. But I think that limiting Bangladesh's exports to the 2007 levels is sort of a drawback for us right now, especially given that China's competitiveness has been growing. China's exports have been growing really fast, and next year the quotas in China will be coming off. They were put artificially back on in 2005 when some of you are familiar with the multi-fiber agreement. That removed the quotas in the entire global trading regime, or was supposed to, but in 2005 there were artificial quotas placed on China. So China's exports are right now restricted, but after next year they won't be restricted. So the competition will rise even more, and there are other really competitive rising exporters as well. So I think that we need to stay in the game, and in order to do that we need to get the maximum amount of access that we can get. So I think that that's one area of concern. And the other area, which is also very important, is on the labor issue. The bill would require that Bangladesh meets these 5 ILO labor standards. The ILO is the International Labour Organization, and there are 5 ILO labor standards that many countries have signed on to, including Bangladesh, but few have implemented. So I'll just read them out. So these might be familiar to you already. But they're freedom of association, which means that people can join unions if they want to, freedom of collective bargaining, so they can bargain collectively, elimination of all forms of compulsory or forced labor. So this is throughout the economy, no countries can have compulsory or forced labor, abolition of child labor, including worst forms of child labor, elimination of discrimination in the employment and occupation, so there cannot be any employment discrimination in the workplace. And this is required of all the countries that are included in the bill. So for all of the LDCs, they have to meet these standards in order to qualify for the bill. So they basically have to prove that they don't have any of these problems within their economy before they can export duty-free. And this is something that came out of the current environment in Congress. There are Democrats that are in the majority in Congress right now, and Democrats really care about these labor issues in poor countries. And the labor unions are also stronger now than they have ever been before in the US, because they basically helped get the Democrats in power. So I think that we cannot sort of just disregard these requirements. We have to work really hard to qualify for the bill. It's an important bill for us. But we also have to ask the US to be more lenient in sort of the time frame within which we can meet these conditions, as well as ask for more labor standards assistance, so that there are sort of trainers on some of these labor issues. We find it really hard to meet all the different requirements by the different retailers that we work with. There are various retailers in the US who require different labor standards. So I think one issue is harmonization. We need to sort of have a harmonized set of rules that we have to adhere to, and also some help in sort of training workers what their rights are, and helping ensure that any cases that are found, the labor violation cases that are found, are monitored and prosecuted, and things like that, which I think all poor countries need help with. It's not really sort of easy for even some of the more developed countries to do well in these areas. So I think that those 2 issues are the issues I would raise with the bill. On the issue about Africa versus the Asian LDCs, I've also distributed a letter which you might have by now, which lays out the main points why Bangladesh shouldn't be discriminated against. And if you feel that it's a letter that your organization can sign on to, then I think that would help get our voice out in Congress and through the administration. The other thing I just wanted to touch on very briefly is that we should really sort of look at the impact on women. And Dr. Yunus always does a good job of reminding us that a lot of the garment workers are women. And I think that we've heard cases where there's a lot of sexual harassment cases, and these are areas that I think we need help with that are not being sort of looked at. I recently talked to a member of an NGO here in Bangladesh who raised this as an issue for me. And I feel that this is something that we should sort of really try to address, because our story really is that the garment industry has done great things for women, and that's really sort of what we're proud of. And there's 3 million women who are working in the garment industries who didn't have opportunities before. So this is something that we tell the United States and others, this is an area that Bangladesh is doing really well in enforcing, basically encouraging women to get into these occupations and promoting their social and economic rights. And I think that we want to highlight that story even more. So I think that we cannot let issues like that come out in the public, where people are aware of the downsides as well and tend to link these issues to trade. So any kind of labor violation issues are linked to trade a lot of times, and a case is made for stopping trade or sanctions or having restrictions of any kind of in trade with a certain country. So I think that we should sort of partner with NGOs here, or however we can sort of ensure that the industry is talking to the government and NGOs to make sure that these issues are addressed well. I think I've pretty much covered the main points. One other area where we really cannot do anything, but we should be aware of the opposition against the bill, is the American textile producers. They, for a long time, they're very protectionist and really don't want exports coming in from other poor countries because they put their own workers in jeopardy. They are afraid of losing jobs. And a lot of the trade agreements that the US has with other areas, for instance, NAFTA and CAFTA, they require that garment producers in these countries use US textiles or local textiles. So, for instance, CAFTA countries like Honduras or others would have to, in order to export a t-shirt, they would have to use either US fabric or local fabric. So that gives a boost to US textile producers. And within this bill, there is no such requirement. Basically, if Bangladesh or other countries want to use Chinese fabric and export apparel to the US, they could. And this is really a point of concern for a lot of the American textile producers. They feel that they're being undermined and China is being made more competitive. So this is frequently being raised as an issue. And I've also distributed a letter from the National Council of Textile Organizations who say the same thing. Basically, they say that they don't want Bangladesh and Cambodia to get duty-free access because they're super competitors. But from our conversations with them, we've found that their real issue is that Bangladesh and Cambodia aren't required to use their own textiles, American textiles, for producing fabric. So we cannot really sort of do anything there, but I think it's good to be aware of the opposition. There's a lot of support for the bill, but there are also camps that are very strong that are opposing the bill. The African countries themselves haven't really said anything yet. They haven't formulated their stance. There's a group of ambassadors that are meeting in Washington almost every week to decide what their stance should be. But a lot of times their combined opinion is being hijacked by certain apparel producing countries. So there are only 5 countries in Africa that produce and export apparel. Kenya, Mauritius, Lesotho, Swaziland, and Tanzania, I think. And they're basically really scared of Cambodia and Bangladesh stealing their apparel export share in the US. But there are lots of African countries that don't get enough benefits in agriculture and other areas which will gain from this bill. And I think that we should sort of partner with them. And the Bangladesh embassy in the US has done a good job of doing that, of talking to the African ambassadors to show them, look, there are other benefits they can get in agriculture that outweigh your benefits in garments and apparel, and you should be sort of promoting this bill. So I think that we can work with the Africans to formulate a position, they can formulate a position, and we can be supporting them in this, because this is important for all of the LDCs, for Africa because of agriculture, and for Bangladesh mostly because of apparel. So I'll just stop there, I think, and see if anyone has any questions. Laid out a lot of political dynamics and policy issues and political issues, and I'm not really sure sort of what some of the questions might be.
Thank you, Shamaru. What I will do, I will invite questions a little later. First, we would like to listen from our panelists. So if you kindly take your seat. But I'm sure there will be a lot of questions. Let us try to take a sort of direction through this seminar today. Shamaruk has very nicely presented the total bill. She has touched almost all the points: the discrimination, the requirement, labor requirement, the political requirement, time frame, everything. But I would like to have a little bit more detailed discussion in two ways, two aspects. A total technical aspect, what the bill details, and the other one is a political aspect. That what do you want and how do you want, and how much it will be benefited. If this bill comes into existence today, how much it will be beneficial for Bangladesh? Yes, there will be some benefit, but how much? And what should we do really, technically, and if we need to emphasize on special clauses or something, and also from the standpoint of political importance or political enforcement that we should give. So I would like to say a few words more. Like, let me give a brief that what is happening today. This is a $10 billion, $9 billion industry. I told you at the very beginning. Every year on year from 1980s or later, especially from 1990s, we had a growth of 20%. When there was quota, it was the multi-fiber agreement was phasing out. We heard a lot that this industry will be diminished if the quota is out, if we are out of quota. But we from the industry, especially from BGMEA, we said no. If the quota diminishes, we'll rather flourish. There will be a lot of investment, and that has happened. A $4 billion or $4.5 billion export in 2004, today is $9 billion export. But what is happening now? This year, the export is going down, irrespective that we are exporting to both Europe and US to our best. In one way, the export is going down. On the other hand, we have expanded our capacity so much that if we take today, the export is 0.56% less in gross, both neat and oven, from the total industry in US, Europe and other countries. In oven it is over 9%, in neat it is 0.56%, which is quite a shocking news for us. This is a result of many occasions that has happened over the last 2 years, or over the last 1.5 years in Bangladesh, but still from the industry we thought that the export will increase during the end of this year. But what we could see now that the export is not increasing. A lot of things are happening in European Union. There is a European Commission. Mr. Raji is here. We'll explain it more. That the rules of origins are changing, and it is going to be a value addition rules of origin. That has been, the parliaments, European all the country parliaments are taking decisions that what should happen. On the other hand, this bill which has come here has been placed by Mr. McDormand. That, from my point of view, has some shortcomings that also we need to discuss it today. But before we go into more detail, I will request Ambassador Farooq Sobhan, who is a very helping, very cooperating, very influential, and every time, even we don't call him, he calls us that what is BGME doing, and helps us in all the ways from any of our effort of getting any access, whether it's in Europe or in America or in India. And he has the detailed knowledge of the technical things, and also he has a tremendous exposure how this bill is being handled and what we should do politically. I will invite him to speak a few words. I will also invite him at the last to make a summary as well. Before that, before I am inviting any panelist in the chair or in my table, I request Mr. Farooq Sobhan to speak for a few minutes.
I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this particular session, which, needless to say, I think is a very important session. I'd like to follow up on the presentation which has just been made by Ms. Muhyiddin, and to say that I think she has summed up the position regarding the bill very effectively. I'd like to elaborate on 3 or 4 critical points. First, of course, is the issue of the content of the bill, and this has been examined by BGMEA, by its lobbyists in Washington, and also by economists here in Bangladesh. Recently, a meeting was convened by the Ministry of Commerce. It was chaired by the advisor, Dr. Azizul Islam, and the relevant, let's say, stakeholders were all present at this meeting. And it did look into this question of how useful will this bill be in helping Bangladeshi exports to the United States. Well, certainly I think it speaks for itself if currently on a range of products Bangladesh is paying on average 15 to 20% duty, and this duty is removed, then clearly Bangladesh will be more competitive in this range of products. As was mentioned, we during the last calendar year, the amount of duty paid by Bangladesh on its RMG exports to the US has been estimated at close to $500 million. And if Bangladesh has the benefit of not paying this duty, well, there will be clearly beneficiaries both in the US and here in Bangladesh, the manufacturers and also the consumers in the US. There are, however, certain issues which are being examined, issues which relate to one of the key elements in this bill, or 2 key elements in the bill. One relate to the rules of origin, and the other relate to the capping arrangements which have been put in position to safeguard, if you like, the interests of the African countries. So effectively, what we are being offered really is half a loaf. But I have been of the view that half a loaf is better than no loaf at all. And I think Ms. Muhyiddin did effectively bring out one of the key issues which Bangladesh has to face in getting this bill through Congress, which is the opposition at the moment of the African countries and the African lobby in Congress, which we all know is a very important and powerful lobby. So one of the tasks is the ability to be able to convince the African countries that their interests will not be adversely affected by the bill. This is a dual challenge in the sense that it does require intensive lobbying by Bangladesh, which will be frankly the main beneficiary of the bill along with Cambodia, that we need to convince the African countries that this bill will not be adversely affecting the preferential benefits that they currently enjoy under AGOA, which was passed in the year 2000. But what we have seen is that, and these are arguments which need to be developed, and we need to convince the key players in Congress on this issue. And the points that I think need to be stressed are primarily three. One is, of course, the fact that there is this capping arrangement. So whereas there are some people here who feel that the capping arrangements take away or detract from the bill, but the fact remains that this is really an important safeguard for the Africans. But we do benefit in the sense that given our export figures for this year, in these categories, we will enjoy duty-free benefit. So there will be a substantial saving to manufacturers here. I think the second key point which needs to be also effectively brought out is that we are not going to be hurting the key African players in terms of the category of products which they produce as against the category of products we produce. That effectively what we are seeking is a competitive edge vis-a-vis China, as distinct from our taking away what is currently being enjoyed by Africa. And the third, and to my mind perhaps the most important argument, an argument which we need to really work much harder at in Bangladesh, is why should the US extend this preferential benefit to Bangladesh. And as we know, the way Congress functions, political interests really invariably outweigh economic interests or arguments. So Bangladesh really has to make a strong political pitch in Congress to convince them that Bangladesh needs to be helped. And this brings me to what should be the strategy or approach of Bangladesh in tackling this problem. And here I would like to outline four very clear, if you like, players vis-a-vis this particular bill. We have, of course, the government of Bangladesh. What should they be doing? We have BGMEA. What should they be doing? And we have two important players in the United States, namely the Embassy of Bangladesh. And to my mind, the most important player out of all these players would be the NRBs. And what are the NRBs in the United States doing to mobilize support for the bill? And here I believe that the role of the NRBs is going to be critical. Now, experience has shown that how effectively you lobby your congressman, how effectively you lobby your senator does make a big difference in the general scheme of things. So the first lesson I believe NRBs need to learn is how politics function in the United States. That you have to really be an active player in one or the other of the two major political parties, namely either the Republicans or the Democrats. We are, as everyone knows, on the threshold of US presidential election, and an election which incidentally suggests that the mood in America is becoming increasingly protectionist. We see an important candidate such as Hillary Clinton, and it was her husband who was president under whom one of the major trade initiatives was adopted in the US, namely NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which unites Mexico, the US, and Canada. And notwithstanding that, we see a language being increasingly voiced by the principal Democratic candidates, which suggests that it's going to be very difficult getting a bill through Congress, which further opens up the US market, particularly so in an election year. So our window of opportunity really is maximum 6 months. So if we have to get this bill through, then it is very important that these 4 players, the government, BGMEA, the Bangladesh Embassy, and most important of all, the NRBs, move into action right away. Let me here focus on first and foremost the role of the NRBs. They have to really link up with their congressmen right across the US. We know, for example, that Bangladeshis are now constitute NRBs in the city of New York, are very active, very important players. They must make their voice heard, particularly in the camp of Hillary Clinton, because many of them are campaigning for her. Equally so, in the case of the other front runners, Barack Obama, for example, someone who prides himself on his heritage. I think we should be able to reach out to him. But above all, since it's a bill which has to find its way through Congress, it is very important that we try and rally as many congressmen. How do we get Bangladesh, as it were, onto the radar screen of the United States? Why is Bangladesh going to be important for the United States? And I think there can be no more vivid way of demonstrating this than this very tragic event which took place yesterday, namely the assassination of Benazir Bhutto. The point here is that what we are seeing happening in Pakistan, namely the rise of extremist forces, is something which we need to avoid at any cost in the case of Bangladesh. And Bangladesh's big success story has been what I can best describe as the emancipation of women, the empowerment of women, and this comes through the ready-made garment sector. It comes also, of course, through what is happening in the villages of Bangladesh, through microcredit and the Grameen initiative. So we need to really develop this message and make it heard loud and clear in the United States. Because without that message getting through to the congressman, we are not going to be able to get this bill through Congress. Of course, there are a great many things which the government should do. I think we need to see regular visits by delegations from Dhaka to Washington and elsewhere. I think it's very important, for example, that we take full advantage of key meetings and events, in particular the G8 summit, which is down the road. It's equally important that the point which Ms. Muhyiddin made is effectively addressed, but not only addressed, but is also projected in the United States, that Bangladesh is getting its act together insofar as labor rights are concerned. Surprisingly, we are seeing that today China has become extremely conscious and aware of this. In Bangladesh, we need to understand the importance of corporate social responsibility. We need to understand why CSR needs to be not simply practiced within the ready-made garment sector, but that it is seen to be so by the international community at large. The government, I think, really needs to do much more in terms of improving its projection and getting the message across. And here, clearly, BGMEA and the government should be working closely together. The embassy, of course, has a very important role to play, and it needs to work closely also with the NRBs. So here in Dhaka, we need the government and BGMEA, and I would say equally important would be the Bangladesh Textile Manufacturers Association. The president is here today. BKMEA, these are all key players because they will all benefit from this, as indeed will the economy of Bangladesh as a whole. And similarly, the embassy and the NRBs need to work together. I'll stop here and we'll be happy to respond to questions later on. Thank you.
We'll continue up to 5 in the afternoon, so we have 1.5 hours. I would request our panelists in the table first and request them to speak for the first time for 5 minutes, and later after we finish all 6 of you, then we'll invite some questions if we have some questions to any of us or to Ms. Mahiuddin. And then we'll try to sum up with our today's seminar. I once again would like to come out with a request that to focus that if we can come out with some decisions, both in technical aspect and in the political aspect, and with regard to NRB's role as well, if we conclude some lines, and we'll try to do it. So I would request now our guest, Mr. Saeed Omar Farouk. He's from the industry, he's Vice President SL Khalid Group, to speak a few words.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and assalamu alaikum. Thank you for coming here for this discussion about the US and Bangladesh trade status. I'm just going to start on a different note because I have been asked to come here and speak as living in US for a long time, since 1986. Although I did not become an NRB because I chose to come back to Bangladesh and having been involved in the same trade in the textile. I mean, it just takes me back to 1986 because I'm aiming my speech towards the NRBs and what the purpose that we are here for. I mean, what we have found out today from the 2 previous speakers, especially Ms. Mahiuddin and the ambassador, in addition to that, there are some other issues that we have come across, which is critical for these bills to be passed through. We have been involved in the port projects in Chittagong Port, where we have been hired as a consultant. And one of the other issues that's growing, and that's a matter of concern, which is the requirement from US, is the CTPAT requirement, which stands for Customs Trade Partnership Against Terrorism. And with the recent development and incidents that's happening globally, we have heard from our sides dealing with port projects from different various agencies from US who have come here, that compliance issue was a big issue in Bangladesh factories, which mostly manufacturers have been working very successfully to overcome that. But in addition to that, there could be a potential risk in terms of the factory's ability to produce from the CTPAT compliance. Factories need to be CTPAT compliant. US government takes this issue very seriously. So this is one of the areas that we need to focus on for these bills. Again, I'm not so sure that if this is one of the issues regarding this bill, but we have heard from our sources where we have seen this could be a pressing issue. In addition to CTPAT requirements, besides the labor unrest, which has been a great concern, besides that, environmental issue is going to play a major factor in getting these bills through. The ambassador has highlighted very effectively because we have a window of opportunity and time is of essence. What we need is the help from the NRBs very actively, because after all, for Congress to make this decision or Senate to pass this bill, politics is always going to play a greater role. And one way to achieve that, besides the 4 entities that we have identified, the critical component is the NRB's involvement in the mainstream politics of the United States, where it can be effectively lobbied for Bangladesh to have these duty-free access. The question that the ambassador asked us to think that why should US grant this access to Bangladesh? I mean, this is what we as the manufacturers and the NRBs do need to understand. From my personal experience, going back to that instead of if the bill passes, this is going to be the greatest opportunity for Bangladesh. As ready-made garment sectors, as you know, although it's a smaller component of the GDP, considering the high import content, it has decreased from 25% down to 17%. Although since the post-MFA era, we have seen almost close to 30% increase in both value and volume. But however, with the 2008 safeguard ending, with Vietnam and Cambodia becoming a greater threat to competition for Bangladesh garment sectors, we have to also broaden our horizon and go beyond the benefit of the bill in case this doesn't come through. When is the next time that we will have the opportunity to have access to the US market in a more competitive way? Bangladesh does have a lot of advantages. Again, we are a labor-intensive country. This is a labor-intensive industry. We do have natural advantages here. We have had a good currency exchange. We do have some additional problems, such as our lead time, that we need to work very effectively. Port has been a big constraint because at the end of the day, we, as the people who are involved in the industry, we will have to continue our trade. Today, the number of factories have grown. Anisula already mentioned that. Initially, this business started with the FDI investments. Now, it's dominated by the local entrepreneurs. But I think we have in excess of 4,300, as of the last data that I collected in 2006, number of factories and over 2.2 million laborers involved in the industry. One of the initiatives that I took during my 18 years in US is we identify an opportunity, to be competitive in a different way, and studying what the buyers ultimately are trying to get out of the industry from Bangladesh. Because we right now have a lot of pressure and competition from some countries in Asia. We have focused on design development in US. And I think some of the NRBs who are there, they understand the market. They understand what the consumers want in US. Can invest in such sectors like we have done in our company. We have hired American designers, we have hired American merchandisers, we have created products, and we have sold to the American companies. And we have received a lot of support, and it has helped us become one of the leading suppliers. So I think as NRBs, as you are here and you want to explore possibilities and investment opportunities in Bangladesh, garment sector is engine of growth for these countries. But at the same time, we have challenges that's going to be very significant for Bangladesh. You have heard from the previous speakers that we are seeing a slowdown in our trade, which is a matter of great concern. But at the same time, we have to be ready and prepared mentally and also from our infrastructure and from business point of view, how to tackle these issues and the challenges. So anyway, I've been limited to 5 minutes. I think I'm almost reached my end of the time. If you do have any questions later on, we'll be open for a question and answer session. And thank you very much for giving the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
I would now request our special guest, Mr. Jillur Hairazi. He's a trade advisor for the European Union.
Thank you. I'll go straight to the subject without having any niceties. First, this is very comfortable position for me because you're discussing United States business. I have a very rare opportunity to have BGME and BTMA together in the same table, and we are not in the middle. So I am very comfortable today. That's one. But this also reminds me to mention that when you discuss about ready-made garments or apparel or clothing, you see there are three terms used. In Bangladesh, we call it ready-made garments, United States apparel, and in European community, clothing. So anyway, when we talk about these subjects, I believe strongly that this is textile and clothing. So when we talk about ready-made garments, we'll have to look at the implication for textile sector also. I'm not provoking a debate here. Anyway, I would also like to mention that when you look at the ready-made garments business or apparel business, there is an interesting feature that most of the knit items go to Europe and woven goes to United States. But woven itself is 50-50 between Europe and United States, and the business is about 42, 46, depending on the case, is most of the items going to European Union because it's a single market. That's why we are saying that. Now, I have a question to all of you, especially the author of today's paper and the NRB is present here. Why do you think that we have failed in our lobbying for the last 7 years in the United States? Because we are talking about a bill in 2000 given to other countries, and we started lobbying to United States. BGMA is here. We started lobbying, but why it did not happen? What went wrong? I think when you mentioned today's paper and also by Ambassador Farooq Sawan about the duties given to United States against the product of Bangladesh, you know, I used very carefully the terms because the duties are not paid by Bangladesh. Duties are paid by the importers. So when United States thinking of removing this duty, they are thinking of foregoing this amount. And if you look at the comparison between UK, Italy and Bangladesh, you are actually having a kind of a gray area because there you are not saying that Bangladeshi shirts are paying more duty than exactly the same category, same oven, more, basic oven shirt by the Italians or UK. If you can prove that, then you have a stronger argument. But I believe the higher value product have lesser duties compared to these most sensitive items. And why we call them sensitive items, it's recognized. If you look at the withdrawal of MFA, which came last? Shirts, t-shirt, trousers. Most sensitive item in the sense they are less competitive in the United States and European Union. That's why they kept it for a long time that they could have a better breathing space. So these things you have to keep in mind when you are arguing for a case for Bangladesh. Second, why should they give it to Bangladesh? You know, when we are in school, we gave grace mark for people who are weak in subjects, English or mathematics. But very rare occasion you would think of giving a grace mark for the first 5. And if you look at the items Bangladesh export to European Union and United States, look at the category, specific items, a particular trouser, a particular shirt. I'm provoking both you and Mr. Anisul Haq to defend your case that when you have a great advantage and a great success story, the first 5 within the exporters, among all the countries of the world, do you think a country would immediately think of giving you extra grace marks? This is a question you have to defend. I'm not saying that, I'm not asking for it. I said you have to look at the weaknesses of your arguments. So you have to defend that case also, that you are doing excellent, yet you want some more. Now the next question comes, is that enough to get the duty free? We have been competing with China with giving the duty with these items. We have been competing with other countries also, both in the United States, also in European Union. Now, assuming we get this bill passed and we have duty-free access, but when are we getting it? Perhaps after 2008 or the later part of 2008, maybe later, we don't know. But what will happen in between now and 2009? China will have a free access to European Union from January next year, and have free access in January 2009 in the United States. You will have to consider that a level playing field coming because China is coming huge way, even on our sensitive items. Second, there is a NAMA negotiation going on, assuming the duties are going down radically. So this bill would be irrelevant. These are factors you have to consider. Finally, there is a free trade agreement also going on in between different countries, different regions. Right at the moment, European Union is negotiating with India for free trade agreement, which will put us definitely in a disadvantaged position. They're also having a negotiation with ASEAN countries. There's a free trade agreement going on, negotiation going on. And these are all expected to finish by 2009. By the time when Mr. Anisul Haq will congratulate me and thank me for having the relaxation of duty, rules of origin, because it's coming, the proposal is for 30% value addition. By then, it will be level playing field. There could be a possibility of a NAMA successful negotiation with a clear erosion of the preference. So these are the challenges we will face. So what is my answer to all these things? I think my answer to all these things is to prepare for a level playing field and be competitive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your very challenging words. I will now request the acting president of BGMA, and let me see how he wants to bring this on this. Mr. Sana.
Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon. First of all, I must congratulate NRB's for the first time they are making a NRB conference in Bangladesh. And also they are arranging few seminars. One of the agenda is RMGs. Especially my job is easier because who is moderating today is our ex-president, and also he is the one who started this trade long ago and knows a lot about it. I want to start with the answers that one of the speaker has said. Asked, why you are late? 7 years late, I think, for coming up with the bills. Ms. Mohiuddin has said 3 years back, one of the BJME delegation was there, led by Mr. Anisulok. We left out of Agua, I think, and right after that, our president was Mr. Anisulok. Yes, we had a failure from the side of the governments. We had the failure from BJMEs also, or from the things, but when Mr. Anisulok was our president, in his tenure, he took Dr. Yunus with him. He visited a lot of congressmen. And from there on, I must congratulate Mr. Shabbir Ahmed and also be grateful from the ready-made garment sectors that the tough job he is taking over. From there on, the Trade Act came over, and then the NPDA bill came in. As the chairperson said, that is the most important. There are 3-4 beneficiaries. I mean, the government has to work very hard, BGMEs has to work very hard, our embassy has to work hard. Number 4 is you people. And Ms. Mohiuddin has said there are few challenges we have to face. One of the most important is good governance, what Mr. Anisulok said, the bottleneck of this bill. And then labor sectors. You all must know about it. Bangladesh is the ILO signatory. And BGME is the only one in the world first to show that child labor has been eliminated from this sector. And it is internationally recognized. Even Pakistan has sent team down here to see how we have succeeded in these things. And also I must give you another information there. This is the first sector-wise minimum wages has been fixed by BGME and the governments together. And Mr. Anisulok was one of the member of the wage boarders down there. And also recently you have seen for last 3 or 4 months, the governments and us, we have worked so hard. We pushed our factories to pay the minimum wages. And right now we are saying we are paying almost 96-97% minimum wages in this sector. So as Ms. Mohiuddin said, we must buy some time from the US to uplift all those issues. So on the labor sector also we have worked. And also we are working with UNFPA to eradicate gender issues, to improve the health conditions, and a lot of NGOs are working on these sectors. So the contribution this sector has is not only 2.2 million workforces. Directly or indirectly, the whole economy is involved with this. Today you think about the banks, a lot of bankers are here. So what will happen to these financial institutions? As Mr. Anisulok mentioned, just the recent last 4 months data we have got. On the open sector, the reduction came 9%. On the net, it is okay, 0.56, but it is alarming because last 3 years, every year growth was almost close to 20%, but today is not there. And we have a threat coming, the China's embargo is going to go, and the new GSP regulation is coming up. So, and a lot of FTAs is going to be signed within 1 or 2 years. So at least, as Mr. Chairman said, half a loaf is better than full loaf. So what do we say? We see a hope today on the NPDA. Bangladesh's name is there, Cambodia's name is there. Yes, Bangladesh is a major player in the garments arena of the world. But how much? We are only exporting $9 billion, whereas our most competitor China is playing 90 billion US dollar. So you see the differences, how big it is. There are ample scopes, and there are ample scopes in the job creation down here. So on behalf of the BGME, I request NRBs, use your power down there. You show to your congressman, or write a letter to your congressman, write a letter to your senators, so that we get most support on this. And as we know, it will be hard in the Congress in January and February. There are a lot of opposition coming from the African loving nations also. There will be a lot of hindrances down there. So we have threat of not getting, we have also the opportunities of getting. So on behalf of the BGME, I urge officially, formally, your supports to pass these bills, so that this $9 billion business is there and we could go more. We could grow more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sam. I would now request Mr. High President BGMA.
Thank you, Mr. Anisul Haq. And Assalamu alaikum, and very good afternoon to the participants from home and abroad. This is indeed a very praiseworthy initiative to organize a seminar like this by participants from all our Bangladeshi nationals staying abroad. In fact, regarding duty-free access of Bangladeshi commodities to US market, garment to US market, the earlier speaker has spoken a lot about it. And my knowledge in this respect also very limited, because I am not directly involving in garment trade, but we are mostly in backward linkage business like spinning, weaving, knitting, dyeing, finishing. So as my earlier speaker has appealed to the NRB to influence the US Congress to get the bill passed through, this New Partnership Development Act. I have another point to put forward to the NRB for consideration, that we need investment. So this conference has been organized at such a time when our government and our country is desperately needed foreign investment. So foreign investment, to start with, it has to come through the NRB first, because if you look at China, when China opened up, all overseas Chinese, they came forward to China and invested in a massive way. And other foreign investors also followed them vigorously. Right now, they have so much of investment in China, also in India. So you can be pioneer to bring all the foreign investors to here in Bangladesh, provided that you also make some plan to invest here. When you invest here, then they will be encouraged to come here and invest in backward linkage sector. We are talking about garments. We are out right now, export is about $9.2 billion. And the question is retention. How much retention we have? If we make only garment here, then our retention will be 20-25%. Rest of the money will be going out of the country in the form of fabric and fabric import and accessory import like this. So, in order to give a right boost to the RMG sector, we desperately need to develop the backward linkage sector, like you have to put a spinning, weaving, dyeing, knitting, finishing. As far as knit sector is concerned, as BGMA acting president mentioned, that in knit sector, the things is okay. Why it is okay? Because there are a lot of development in backward linkage. Lead time is less because we can supply yarn, we can supply knit fabric to the requisite requirements. We almost 80 to 85 to 95% we can supply to the knit factories now, knit sector. So knit sector is claiming maximum retention of foreign exchange here in Bangladesh right now. And woven sector, still there exists a big gap to fill up, because we still have to import a lot of fabric from outside to meet up our RMG requirements in woven sector. So these gap need to be shortened, provided that we invest vigorously in backward linkage sector. So my appeal to the non-resident Bangladeshis to take the initiative to come in here and for which BTMA is there, BGMA is there, we can also give you support if you need any information, whatever. And government also providing a lot of incentive package to the investor. And as this is a motherland, so your duty is to also divert your attention to here, because we have a lot of problems. We don't have much resources, we have only gas, but we have a lot of working people available here at a very reasonable price. So, and the sector should be textile. Textile is the only area where you can really create a lot of job opportunities here. And contribution of textile to the present GDP of the country is about 13%. And our export earning, foreign exchange earning out of all sectors, besides manpower of course, is about 78% of the total earning of foreign exchange come from textile sector. So this is very, very important sector. And in order to elevate poverty elevation, to elevate poverty, this is the only area we can really make investment and create a lot of job opportunities. Right now, overall textile sector is employing about 5 million people, both in together with garments and spinning, knitting, weaving, spreading to all sectors. And we have also created very big clientele base, like business for the insurance company, business, banks, then shopping complex, and so many other things, you know. So develop, just all this money are going to this kind of business. So a lot of people also indirectly employed in accessory business. There is again not very less, it's about 1 million people, you know, working indirectly to give feedback to the government as well as the textile clothing sectors. So once you start investing here, definitely the foreigners will also be interested to come here. And right now in Bangladesh, a lot of facilities available. We have now better medical care. We have 4 or 5 very world-class hospitals right now here. So if you bring back your kids here, also there are good arrangements for the treatment, also education, good school coming up, college coming up, university coming up. So everything is there. And most of the, I have talked with many of the non-resident Bangladeshi in many occasions. They have a lot of fear to come in here to invest. Because Western media mostly portray a negative side, not positive side. So actually we have a lot of good things happening here, but that is hardly being portrayed in Western society. So since you are here, if you come regularly like this and every year conference like this organized, I am sure you will have in-depth knowledge of what is happening here. We are also surviving here. We are doing really a good life here also as well, besides a lot of problems here. But still, if you come forward, all problems will be eliminated, I am sure, and it will be reduced. And you should act as the ambassador of Bangladesh to invite the foreign investor to bring in here. I think I don't like to prolong any more speech, prolong my speech anymore, because a lot of other speakers are here. So once again, I'd like to thank you very much to the organizer for arranging this seminar and conference. And I am sure this is going to be an annual event, so that more Bangladeshi, non-Bangladeshi come in here and attend this kind of seminar to have in-depth knowledge of Bangladesh business activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would like to invite our very good friend, always helping us for this sort of quest. We are always going for this sort of facilities with our US part. Mr. Shabbir Ahmed, Chair, the US Bangladesh and Advisory Council. Mr. Shabbir.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon again. I want to ask, do we have any representation here from the United States Embassy? Is Miss Heather here? Miss Heather, I thank you very much for coming. Why don't you come and sit in the front so that I can see more of you? Please come and join us here. I apologize that I didn't. Thank you for coming and joining us here this afternoon. I want to be fair to the theme that exists here. It says the state and status of trade between Bangladesh and United States. All we have heard since we started until now is about the bill and what we need to do in the US. We haven't heard anyone speak on the status of trade between the United States and Bangladesh. And I can understand why they are shy in talking about it, because the balance of trade between Bangladesh and United States is one-way traffic. It is just one-sided. And my friends here may feel a little upset about it, but I'm an American. And I will say what is good for America first, and then I will touch on other areas. Having said that the balance of trade, if anybody disagrees with me, please feel free to challenge me.
Same story with the EU.
We will come back to that later on. I can see Professor Ahmed disagreeing with me, but Mr. Mohiuddin Ahmed disagreeing with me, but we'll come to that later on. So let us address for a minute, and I really don't have much to tell you how we can bring a balance of trade between the two countries. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not even an economist, and I have never worked for the World Bank. So I don't have any suggestions here. Perhaps some friends can suggest. But there is one issue, and that issue, which is a common issue, is so long we have heard from the clothing industry, the apparel industry, or the RMG sector as it is called in Bangladesh. My friend Hai Sarkar, he and I have gone to school together, and I oftentimes tease him. And my teasing has yielded some results. He is importing some US cotton. So the point I'm trying to make to you is that the industry leaders in this country, they need to take a look at it. You cannot put the garment industry separate, as has been done, and the textile and the spinning industry in another compartment. They have to learn to work with each other. And if Bangladesh succeeds in achieving duty-free in the United States as they have done in the European Union, guess what? It's just not the apparel industry which is going to benefit. His industry is also going to benefit in a greater manner, because he is selling his fabrics to all the mill owners here, the cut and sew plant owners. So they need to work together. Bangladeshis have got to learn to work together, work cohesively and peacefully. Let them show an example, and then we, living overseas, will try and see how we can help them. If you agree, give me a round of applause. Come on, it's a good cause. I mean, not me an applause, but the philosophy an applause. I apologize. I'm not trying to be popular here. Okay, so we will talk about it a bit later during the Q&As. Is my time up?
No.
Okay. Secondly, and to me it is very, very dear, I am an American first, and I have said that before, and I want to reiterate this. Before I go any further, allow me to recognize a very fine American of Bangladesh origin. He has worked with me and with the community in the Washington, D.C. area very greatly. He wants to remain very aloof. He does not want to be recognized, but I'm taking the liberty to recognize Mr. Ramjan Ali. Please stand. He was the former president of the Bangladeshi Engineers and Architects of North America. I asked him so many times, come and sit in the front, but he doesn't. That explains. We in America would like to be identified as Americans. I am personally fundamentally opposed to the definition the organizers have given to all of us as NRBs, non-resident Bangladeshis. I am personally, as I said, personally I'm opposed to this. I am an American of Bangladesh origin. That is how I would like to be recognized. If any of you who live in America and you are a US citizen or even hold a green card, I hope I have not offended you, and I hope that you will first like to be recognized as an American. And I'll tell you why. If you can be a true American and you can get involved in the mainstream America, that is a much more effective way to help Bangladesh than doing politics of Bangladesh in the United States. Let me also say this to you, gentlemen, at this time. We in the Advisory Council are a group, a bipartisan group. Our members are either Republicans or Democrats. And if someone is an independent, we have members who are independents also. We do not allow any Bangladeshi politics in Washington, D.C. in our council. Thank you. You can make it louder. Okay. We do not take part in the politics of Bangladesh. And that is something I want to make it very, very clear. I have addressed these issues to the previous regimes, heads of regimes visiting Washington and New York. And every time they have gone to visit Washington or New York, we have found our community to be more divided. So it is a constant struggle. I'm sure my fellow American brothers, you understand the wound. So I want to make sure that we are on the same wavelength on this. We would like to be recognized as Americans of Bangladesh origin. Please do not bracket us by NRBs. We do not want to be putting our foot in two boats. We would like to be, as I said, become a powerful force in the United States and by being an American first. Thank you. I think some of our friends here will address on the issue of balance of trade. What steps can we take, can you all take to bring a balance of trade? And on a different area, as you have heard on the apparel industry and the textile industry. I remember when a very fine American came here, and Heather, you are not here, I don't know where you are, a good friend, Mary Ann Peters, when she was approved by the Senate, she became ambassador designate. The council hosted a reception for her. And she took a briefing from our council before she took her job here. Needless to say, I was pitching on Bangladesh garment. She called me 2 days later and she said, Shabbir, is there an alternative suggestion you can give me? Is there anything else that Bangladesh needs to do to find a market in the United States? I was so blinded about this garment sector that I was not able to give her an intelligent solution or a second front. As I grow older and as I begin to see the world from a truly global perspective, I look upon Bangladesh, and oftentimes in seminars in Washington, D.C., in various think tanks, which Shamaruk Mohyuddin and I attend, we have discovered more we have discovered than perhaps you have, that there are alternatives that exist in Bangladesh. We truly need to address those alternatives. I am hereby suggesting 2 areas that you Bangladeshis living in this country need to develop if you can. And I'm sure the dynamism that the entrepreneurs have shown in the apparel sector, which I have cited all over, it is truly a global, it's a phenomenal, the success of Bangladeshi entrepreneurs in the garment sector is a success that we can proudly mention anywhere in the world. Nowhere in the world you can see success of a similar industry. I think that in Bangladesh, the pharmaceutical industry is prospering very well. I was at a seminar earlier this morning. 2.5 years ago, I brought a couple of specialists from Washington to look at the pharmaceutical industry in Bangladesh. Once I arrived here, 2 people wanted to see us, Square Pharmaceuticals and Beximco Pharmaceuticals, and Ambassador Farooq was involved in this negotiation and setting up meetings, and I'm very thankful to him. Others sent out messages to me. Their concern was the FDA regulations, and Ms. Heather, please take note if you wish to, and help us if you can. The FDA terms or regulations are so strict and stringent that the Bangladeshi entrepreneurs just do not want to look at United States as a market. Now, if the Indian pharmaceutical can enter the United States healthcare or pharmaceutical area, I cannot understand why Bangladeshi entrepreneurs cannot, because I think that the Bangladeshi entrepreneurs are much more talented than the Indian entrepreneurs, because Bangladesh was born only in 1971, and they have demonstrated their entrepreneurial skill and capability much more than what the Indians have done. Would you like to give a round of applause to the Bangladeshi entrepreneurs? I believe that we need to find ways and means how the pharmaceutical industry can enter the United States. The pharmaceutical business in America is a huge market. And guess what? If any pharmaceutical industry can get FDA clearance and enter the United States, the whole world is open to that person. It's just not if you are able to export to European Union, you can export to United States. So that is an area I think I respectfully ask my talented friends and learned friends here, and I wish Professor Wahiduddin Mahmood was here. I would have asked him to give me some suggestions that I could take with me to Washington. The other area is a human area. I truly believe, and I'm very pleased to tell you again, that Ambassador Farooq Subhan and I have worked on this for the last 7 or 8 years, but nothing has materialized yet. There is an acute shortage of trained nurses in the United States. I can see my good friend here nodding his head, so he agrees with me. You may not, but he does. He represents the Citibank, so I'll get money from him to set up a training institute. Now, I believe that, and you know what? The Congress of the United States has passed a special law, I think last year or the year before, which means that if anyone from the United States wants to bring in trained and professional nurses to the United States, a visa can be issued within 48 hours. This is a highly prioritized area. And in the United States, according to the figures that I have obtained, there is a shortage of over 400,000 nurses. Think about it. And I believe that if you can set up a training institute here and train nurses who can speak English, and I'm not asking for a lot, just teach them how to speak English. And if they will learn how to take care of patients, I'm pretty sure they will take care of patients as well as they take care of patients here in Dhaka. Just teach them how to speak English, give them 3 months training, and we will have visas waiting for them to migrate to the United States. So this is another important area I think our entrepreneurs should take interest in. I think I have spoken enough. Thank you very much for giving me your time. And again, he is wanting me to speak to on the bill again. Okay. My concluding remark will be on this bill, as my colleague Shamaruk Mohiuddin has so gracefully and eloquently spoken. I agree with Ambassador Subhan and Mr. Anisul Haq. Someone asked a very provocating question, why didn't we start 7 years ago? And not to cause any embarrassment to the government of Bangladesh or to the industry, let me state a fact here, and I'm glad there is a witness. About 5.5 years ago or 6 years ago, Mr. Kutubuddin Ahmed was the president of BGMEA. He came on a visit to Washington. I arranged a meeting with him to go and see Congressman Charles Rangel. Mr. Charles Rangel was at that time the senior most Democrat in a Republican-dominated Congress in the House Ways and Means Committee. It so happened that Ambassador Farooq Subhan was also visiting Washington at that time, and I said, Mr. Ambassador, come along with us. Let's go and meet Mr. Charles Rangel. There was this meeting, and to cut a long story short, Mr. Rangel asked Mr. Ambassador Subhan, why didn't you come to me before when we passed trade bill of 2000, which incidentally President Clinton signed to law 14 days after visiting Dhaka, and nobody in Dhaka knew about this bill. I guarantee you. Nobody in the industry knew about this bill. Nobody in the government knew about this bill. And it took 7 years for this bill to pass. For 7 years, people in the Hill and with the administration were working to pass this bill. Bangladesh was not anywhere involved with that. So Congressman Charles Rangel asked Mr. Ambassador Subhan, Mr. Ambassador, why haven't you come to us before? We could have very easily included Bangladesh in that bill. What was your embassy doing here? Were they sleeping? I swear to you, those were his comments. Ambassador Subhan is sitting right here. So let us forget what has happened in the past. Somebody has to start it, and I must appreciate the hard work Mr. Anisul has put up since he became the president. He has truly followed up on visits. I mean, following up on something is not in the Bengali culture. We like to do. I can promise you, this meeting, I'm going to walk off here. There is not going to be any follow-up, and I will be sitting and asking questions after about a month from Washington. I will not even get an answer in 6 months. So I think that we need to follow up on this. Mr. Haq has followed up each visit very, very diligently. And the bill that is now on in the Congress, I believe he is also helping along with the other, the present leadership in BGMEA. They were in Washington just about a month and a half ago. We have walked the corridors, and I see one of the participants who came on the visit. Sir, would you please stand? I forgot your name. Mr. Enamul Haq, I apologize. How could I forget your name? He's a member of BGMEA, and he was one of the members of the BGMEA delegation to Washington. He has walked around, met with a number of congressmen and senators, and I think they all came back excited that there is a chance. Now, how to take advantage of the situation, as Ambassador Farooq Subhan and I think Mr. Anisul Haq agrees, and I think my good friend Mr. Salam also agrees. Hopefully, my good friend Hai Sarkar will also agree that we need to work together, find a strategy, work with the government, and find a way to launch a massive campaign. I have been telling Ambassador Shamsher Momin for the last 2 years that we need to work with our African brothers and sisters so that they can also come forward and help us and get this bill through. I have spoken to a number of officials in Dhaka from Washington, and whenever I have raised this concern that the Africans are going to oppose us in this bill, people have asked me questions. The Africans are as poor as we are in Bangladesh. How can they oppose us, brother? Are you sure what you are telling is the truth? Okay, you have heard Shamaruk Mohyuddin tell you what the truth is. I'm not going to stand here and say that we need to energize and get the Africans involved, but it is extremely, extremely important. Not only should the government, but the private sector should also participate in confidence building in Africa. I use the word confidence building because the Africans are opposing us purely because it is out of ignorance. They don't know what is going on in Bangladesh. If you can project your case to the your African counterparts, you need to first win the African entrepreneurs before you go and talk to the government officials. Today, I was very happy to see that in the newspaper that the government has set up or has decided or given a decision that they are sending government officials with private sector officials to African countries to speak to them so that they do not oppose the new Partnership Development Act. I hope that becomes a reality, and as I said, we are there to help you. I think one of the areas that Ambassador Subhan has touched on, and so has Mr. Anisul Haq, I want to go back to this and urge them to find a strategy. How do you want the Americans of Bangladesh origin to help you? We have done our part. We have set up a congressional caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives. There is a caucus in the Hill right now on Bangladesh. We have also tried to bring in sponsors to the bills. How much more do you want us to do? You have to come forward and engage us. And just to tell us that you live here, you owe something back to Bangladesh, that doesn't help. With Ambassador Subhan, I have traveled almost all over America before the establishment of the Bangladesh caucus. People have asked me. Someone like Mr. Ramjan Ali has asked me. I like to deal with professionals first, and let me tell you that the momentum we are building in the United States, dealing with Americans of Bangladesh origin, I am actively working with the medical doctors. They have a very powerful association. I salute them for what he does. A very fine gentleman, the former president of the Medical Association in Bangladesh, Dr. Ziauddin Ahmad, is here, somewhere here. I met him this morning. He works very closely with me, and I work with Mr. Ramjan Ali and the present president of the architects and engineers in the United States. We are building a coalition so that we can give some direction to other Bangladeshis who if you come on board and join us in a campaign and go over the United States, perhaps you will also help us and do us a great favor and help them come out of the politics of Bangladesh and help them engage in the politics of the United States. there is an opportunity here, Mr. Haq, Mr. Salam, Mr. Sarkar, and I urge you in this open platform that that BTMEA, the Bangladesh Textile Mill Association, the Bangladesh Garment Manufacturers and Exporters Association, join hands together and embark on a campaign to see how we get the new partner development initiative passed. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, apologies.
Very cordial and very nice insight. I would like our Secretary, Minister of Industries, Mr. Nurul Amin is here. I would like Mr. Nurul Amin, I would request Mr. Nurul Amin to say a few words.
Thanks to the chair, thanks to the moderator, other guests, assembled local NRB guests, and American Bangladeshi origins. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. I am very pleased to be with you in this evening. I want to share some of my views with you. Though today's topic is state status between US and Bangladesh and bill spending in the US Congress is not very much related to my industry. I want to address these issues from different angle. Excellencies, before I launch into the main body of my deliberation, please allow me to contextualize what follows by a couple of preparatory and paradigm defining observations. Certain propositions concerning economic governance appear to me to be so accurate as to be seen as truism as follows. Sustained manufacturing has been the lifeblood of the country's effort to quicken growth rates and reduce poverty over historical time. Each successful industrializer have had to steer and give a fillip to the process through proactive industrial and trade policies. Successful manufacturing is all about committed learning, innovation, and diversification and adaptation. This is as true for shareholders and CEOs of individual firms as of those who govern. There is no way to grow one's way out of poverty and economic inequality except through mastering what it takes to advantageously integrate the manufacturing and service capabilities of one's country, especially into the global value chains. Distinguished participants, it is the business of my ministry to do all we can to stay on message as we perform the role of an advocate for more beefed up industrial and trade policy, or adapt the specific mix of our strategic thrusts and therefore the content of our policies. I am well aware that the topic for this workshop, this seminar, has had to be changed only on days before the actual commencement of the event. And I can only emphasize with the organizers on account of the footwork for they undoubtedly had to do to accommodate the changes. I was already well on my way towards preparing what I would have preferred to say at this meet in the capacity of the Secretary Industries. Bangladesh, when the word of change came through, my brief during the next few minutes or so would be to use the state of trade between Bangladesh and the United States as a prism for placing before you all some of my most considered thoughts on the future of manufacturing in Bangladesh. The change in the topic is significant from the viewpoint of my presentation because I can see that it has skewed the centricity of garments and textile industries and has instead made room for other promising industries to nurture and nourish to the point of virile adulthood. In the US, Bangladesh benefits generally from GSP privileges, but since 2001, the US has excluded a list of 20 apparel items from the GSP, and this list covers most of Bangladesh garments exports. As a result, Bangladesh faces an average tariff rate of 13% on woven garments and tariffs of 14 to 18% on knitwear in the US, rather than the more preferential GSP tariffs that typically apply to these goods. The denial of duty-free access of Bangladesh's RMG exports is undoubtedly a most pressing issue for Bangladesh. Ladies and gentlemen, it is only natural that without feeling complacent in any way, we in Bangladesh can pause for a moment and savor a moment of vindication. Goldman Sachs research has found that apart from the four fast-growing prospective powerhouses, namely China, Brazil, Russia, and India, Bangladesh rates among the 11 next emerging economies. In the same vein, the recent IMF assessment has it that, based on its continuous GDP growth rates of above 5% for 17 years, and industrial growth rates in the double-digit range, Bangladesh is likely to become a middle-income country in a decade or so. What we have to do is to win inertia and sloth out of the execution of our efforts, save and invest more, innovate and learn more, and wherever imperative, diversify with panacea and proficiency, and grow faster. Here the NRB community or Americans or British of Bangladesh origin, whatever you call, can play a vital role. One of the imperatives going forward will be about spurring the diversification of manufacturing and export base, to which I now turn. One of the arresting traits of the bilateral trade relations between the US and Bangladesh is the preponderance of apparel that marks the trade deficit between the two countries, favoring the former. At a time of mounting US trade deficits with Asian countries with cheap manufacturing hubs, which burn political capital like almost nothing else, including Bangladesh, it is only natural that a good deal of sensitivity surrounds the pending bills in US Congress. For all the credit that we are prepared to heap upon the captains and the workers of our apparel industry for its remarkable success, let us not forget one fact, and that fact is that we need to do a lot more work diversifying our export base. Bangladesh earns more than 75% of its exports earning from the export of clothing, while we source an overwhelmingly large relative share of our requirements for fabrics and accessories from abroad. Backward linkage industries have not flourished in Bangladesh so much. But I must not get ahead of the curve. I must first impress upon you as to how strongly I believe that Bangladeshi diaspora can help Bangladesh in a variety of ways, providing economic capital that may be in short supply domestically, providing high skills like engineering and or management training and accomplishments, and soft skills such as bonding with US-based business leaders, more intimate knowledge of global business practices, and culture, business contracts, and comradeship forged during many years of having worked for large US and multinational companies. Distinguished guests, this cannot be done by government alone. Recent economic history is full of evidence that breakthroughs in industrial and economic development is not for the government alone. Immigrants of various ancestry have also contributed very significantly in the banner success stories of industrialization in recent times. Take the Chinese for instance. Chinese immigrants have economic historians now tell us made tremendous contribution to the Chinese miracle of the last 30 years. According to Professor Ravi Ramamurthy of Boston Northeastern University, overseas Chinese accounted for 80% or more of the inward FDI into China in the 90s, in the 80s and early 90s, when the country opened up. Non-resident Indians too have left their prominent mark, especially upon the second wave of internationalization, in which India's second generation multinational corporations were born. After Indian embraced globalization in the 90s. Even though, according to Professor Ramamurthy, NRIs have accounted for only 10% or less of inward FDI after India opened up. Most of the capital sent to India by NRIs was personal transfers to family and friends, not FDI. Non-resident expertise, especially if it has been forged in the US, typically comprise 4 potential advantages. Cutting-edge expertise, a rich professional network in the West, and imprimatur of reliability, and in the case of high net worth individuals, capital. This general description will, I am sure, apply to NRBs, some of the best of whom I am happy to say are the movers and shakers of this conclave. Gentlemen, the 4 that could be at the vanguard of industrial diversification. The first one is backward linkage industries. Second is leather goods and footwear. Third is active pharmaceutical ingredients. And fourth, I should mention shipbuilding. First one, if I elaborate, while the production of carded and comedian and denim fabrics represent important aspects of the effort led by the private sector dealing with backward linkage, it is commonly known that success in forging backward linkage industries has been sporadic and desultory. This despite the fact that the government has announced a cash incentive of 5% in the budget announced in June 2006. That said, it is my personal belief that in the long run, Bangladesh apparel industry will lose its luster in the eye of the buyers as cheaper sources that can additionally also supply the key attribute of the speed of the contract turnaround become more and more prominent. Names of such countries as Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam and some populous African countries come to the mind here. This consideration pushes the case for diversification towards the top of the agenda facing Bangladesh industrial incentives and institutional policy makers. 3 industries are for me at least strong draw. Those which I have already mentioned, leather goods and footwear. In 2006-07, Bangladesh output of finished leather was about 23 million square meters. The finished leather virtually all ends up being exported to Europe, taking advantage of the duty preferences under GSP. relatively little, if anything, is converted into value-added leather apparel. The requirements of the local industry producing footwear and other leather-based stuff, such as handbags, all source their requirements based on the rump and rejects from this main activity of the finishing rawhide into leather. Leather making being a dirty, smelly, hazardous activity, these countries are all sending it offshore. Mainly China and India are making TD money in it. However, the appreciation of Indian rupee, which most experts expect to stability at some rupees 42 and US dollar, makes it a naturally attractive idea that Bangladesh should convert more of its finished leather into value-added apparel. This is one area in which NRBs can take to the next level of implementation. For its part, the government ought to be able to help with capacity building in terms of design, knowledge of process, certification and the like. Active pharmaceutical ingredients. According to the Synthetic Organic Chemical Manufacturers Association and US-based state body and the European Fine Chemical Group, 75 to 80% of all APIs used by European Union and US drug manufacturers are imported, mainly from India and China. India and China are where they are today in this industry because they have a head start. They started up 15 or so years ago, and because they have large pool of pharmacological skills and expertise. What gives Bangladesh a bit of an advantage is the fact that as a developing country, Bangladesh has been kept outside the purview of the TRIPS by the WTO until 2015. Already the case has been mooted that this waiver be extended up to 2025. This preferential treatment of Bangladesh opens a window of opportunity. Bangladeshi pharmaceutical firms can imitate the intellectual property embodied in foreign patents without violating the international law. Bangladesh may not be able to export such APIs to the first world countries. This would be largely because both US and EU have strict rules in place to ensure that drug APIs meet current good manufacturing practices. The same pessimism applies to the big markets in the newly industrializing countries, such as China and India. But there is a very good chance that Bangladesh will be able to export such APIs to African countries. Already smaller API companies in India are aiming their marketing effort more and more in low-income countries such as in Africa. Shipbuilding. Global trade is growing at a faster rate compared with the rate of which global output of material goods is growing. As well, the openness to trade by the world's fastest growing countries such as Brazil, Russia, India and China is growing faster than for the average country. All that implies strong demand for shipping capacity. Of late, the shortage of shipping space in Asia has been a source of nagging worry in corporate suits, if not in the news. Denmark has allocated $2 billion in order to increase the carrying capacity of that country's merchant shipping fleet, and that is just one country. Ship manufacturing is very labor intensive, between 30 and 30%. 35% of the cost of shipbuilding comprises semi-skilled labor in activities such as welding, machining, painting, and the like. Excellencies, I am convinced that the government of Bangladesh and my ministry in particular will be all ears when it comes to ensuring transparency, speed, and requisite human and institutional capacities. My ministry at this very moment preparing an action plan detailing modalities to how the Industrial Policy 2005 can be translated into concrete implementation. Now, government policy has declared in 2005 industrial policy that government will act as only facilitator and a catalyst, not a regulator. I would now conclude with the hope that through this discussion, some very pragmatic recommendations will come out as regards the topic of the seminar. Thanks to you all.
Thank you. We would like to take some questions if you have, and we would still like to keep our target to finish it by 5, another 20 minutes. Maybe you can spend 10 to 15 minutes if you have some questions to any of us.
My name is Khazamanuddin. I'm special correspondent of the US newspaper. I have a very simple query. Does the bill that has been introduced in the US Congress have the any realistic chances of getting through the US Congress? I'm asking this question because Hillary Rodham Clinton and the president hopeful and also herself is a senator has taken a position on issues like this, and Ambassador Farnsworth has already indicated something like this. And Hillary Clinton is yet to get the nomination of her party, let alone the presidential election, making vote for her party and herself. Will there be a chance, because Congress is dominated by the Democratic Party, so I don't see any realistic chances. If you show that, then I'll be very glad.
Thank you. I would keep this question for Mr. Farooq Saban to answer. Let us take 1 or 2 more questions.
Thank you very much.
If you kindly answer.
I'm Dr. Moeen. I'm from Dhaka University, Department of Management Studies. Whether do we have any sort of concrete plan or action plan to be pushed forward for us to be able to gain access to get the bill through? Do we have any concrete plan? Can those plans be elaborated in some ways? Thank you very much.
Mr. Saban would answer that too. He says that he will answer the question.
State Congress, but this bill not yet passed. So I know BGME or US Bangladesh Advisory Council cannot submit this bill to the United States Congress directly. So it's the duty of Bangladesh High Commission of United States. So how many years they will take to pass these bills in United States Congress?
We would like to sum up today. I would request Mr. Farooq Saban to sum up our discussion today, but I would like to speak for a few minutes. At the very beginning, we said that we'd like to focus on the technical points a little bit and also the political strength that needs to be and the roles of NRBs. I have gone through a little bit through the bill, and what is, as a manufacturer, my personal feeling is that there are a few areas where it is just means the BGMEA, BKMEA, BTMEA, the stakeholders, including the government, need to focus before passing this bill. One of the issues is labor standard. The bill emphasizes so much strongly that the labor standards to be disputed once the bill passed that it will be very difficult for Bangladesh to right now to achieve those sort of standards, and it will be almost impossible. So when we negotiate this bill further, when the hearings will start, when the lobbying will start, we would need to be more focusing on this point. And I think that we should advocate that these standards should gradually be implemented. If it is from the very beginning, if it is implemented, it will be difficult. Ms. Mohideen has given some lights on those issues. We have seen the discrimination between African and especially two countries, which is Bangladesh and Cambodia. The discrimination is for the Africans it is 25% value addition, and for us, who they are calling significant apparel manufacturer. Only 2 countries that has been mentioned in the bill, Bangladesh and Cambodia, which is 35%. How much will be beneficial if this bill passes tomorrow? This value addition of 35% excludes your profitability, excludes your bank interest, excludes your general investment, general administration costs. So even the bill is passed tomorrow, it will be very difficult to get some benefit out of it. Why? Then the question, the facility of backward linkage comes. Yes, if the backward linkage is there, with this value addition, we'll be able to get the benefit out of this deal. But today, especially on the NEET, the strength we have, we are already enjoying a duty-free access with those NEET fabrics in European Union. If tomorrow this facility we get, it will not be easy just to make the backward linkage to over this 5 months, 6 months, or 1 year. So this element needs to be discussed as well, and I think that discrimination should not take part or should not be there. So we from the industry should also focus, especially BGMA acting president is here. I would request him to take note of these issues. There are other aspects of financial help. They also come in 4 different grades: aid for trade, capacity building, infrastructure building. We should also be careful when negotiating or lobbying that this part, because of the strong opposition of African countries, and because also today the textile lobby is advocating against us, saying that they will lose $12 billion per year if this bill is passed. So we should also be careful when we are lobbying that these financial helps in 4th grade, nearly $500 million every year, Bangladesh should get or Asian LDCs, who are the only left outs of AGOA, should get a proper chunk of that help, of financial helps. And there are many other smaller points. Quota, which is a big discrimination. 8 major quota categories, where our export is over 75%. Those 8 major categories, 3347, 348, 3342, men's trouser, t-shirt, ladies shirt, men's jacket, ladies jackets, cotton jackets. These are the major exports of Bangladesh, and this has been under quota in this bill. So when we negotiate this bill, this is also very much necessary that we should do quota. Now, I would also say that politics plays a major role, as all of our people members who have spoken here said very clearly, that politics is the major element that passes or stops this sort of bill. And here, our brothers, our NRB brothers, irrespective, Mr. Sabir says he's an American and not an NRB, we would accept it. But we will also know, as an American and Bangladeshi origin, what feelings you have. I have seen you and many others over the last 5-7 years, that you take more effort than we take actually. So you NRBs, you are our guests, you are here this week, or you are now in these seminars. One of you may contact, one individual contact with one gentleman, with one Bangladeshi and American, or one NRBs, could be a lot of help for pushing this sort of bill. And here, whoever you are there, we have also seen experience during our time that we have been misled by a lot of political flavors, a lot of political elements, who, especially major cities, who stay there in New York or Washington. But our major NRBs or Bangladeshi Americans, who are very cordial to us, who are very cordial for this country, who wants this country to prosper. We believe that your united effort, along with the industry effort and the government effort, would result in a very good benefit. So I would now request Honorable Ambassador Farooq Saman to brief today's seminar, and if you have any suggestions to
that the mode of certainly a sizable part of the Democratic Party seems to be veering towards protectionism, and all the more reason, therefore, that whatever effort we have to make has to be done as quickly as possible. And my definition of this is within the next 6 months, because all the indications are that not simply the next US president, but equally important, the next US Congress is going to be definitely more protectionist minded than the present Congress and the present President. So time is of the essence. I should mention to our friend from the New Age that as of now, Ms. Clinton is one of 100 senators. The issue here is can we, and by this I mean both Bangladesh as well as NRBs, mobilize enough support to get the bill through Congress. I would, and I'm being very candid, see this as a 50-50 exercise, but I would also say it's the best chance we have. So if we all apply ourselves to this task, I would say that there is a reasonable chance that we can get the bill through. But between now and I would say the next 6 months, we really need to pull out all the stops in order to have any chance at all of success. Let me very briefly touch on what I saw as a kind of follow-up question, which is that you know, for 7 years we have been pursuing this, and where have we got to? Well, actually, it's the culmination of the efforts of 7 years that has led to the bill which is now currently on the table. Bangladesh Enterprise Institute, of which I happen to be the president, invited Jim McDermott and Joseph Crawley in association with BGMEA to visit Dhaka for the first time 5 years ago. And that visit too was the culmination of 2 years of work which Shabir and myself had put in cultivating Mr. McDermott and Joseph Crawley, and which also led to the birth of the Bangladesh Caucus. So a lot of work and effort has gone in over a period of 7 years to get us to where we are today. It's been certainly an education for me, but it has also hopefully been an education for the NRB community in the United States. An education in terms of how the political system works in the US. And I said this in my initial remarks. Really, at the end of the day, it all has to do with your ability to influence Congress, your ability to really sell your case and get the bill through Congress. You may, it's not good enough for us to believe, and you know, these were arguments which I did use during visits in the year 2000 and 2001 and 2002. I've been going to the US pretty much every year for the last 8 years on this particular subject. And along with Shabir and BGMEA, we've put in quite a lot of effort and work. And in those early years, one used to make the case that, look, Bangladesh is being discriminated against. You've given this concession to the Africans. How can you deny it to the Asian LDCs? We made the argument that all the other OECD countries have given this concession without discrimination to all the 50 least developed countries. It's only the United States that has excluded the Asian LDCs. But we realized that this argument really cuts no ice with congressmen. So we had to look for other way arguments to try and sell the idea of duty-free access. And at the end of the day, I felt that perhaps the most powerful argument was that helping Bangladesh get this market access is going to be important for the United States. And I said this earlier, and this is really my message to the NRBs, that you've got to make your presence felt. During this 7-year period or 8-year period, I was a first-hand witness to seeing how the influence of the NRIs, the non-resident Indian Americans, how their influence grew to a point where they became one of the most powerful lobbies in the United States Congress. Second, perhaps only to Israel. And it's a case where, today the Israeli lobby can, at the drop of a hat, within 24 hours, they can get as many as 75 senators and perhaps as many as 350 to 400 congressmen to support a resolution or a position or even a bill. So it all has to do with how effectively you can lobby Congress. The Indians have learned this, the Indian NRIs have learned this, and it's now really for the Bangladeshi NRBs or the American Bangladeshi NRBs to learn this lesson. Unfortunately, a lot of our energy and effort has been, in my view at least, wasted in doing Awami League and BNP and Jatiyo Party politics. I regret to inform our NRB friends that this in no way serves the interest of Bangladesh at all. If you want to really serve the interest of Bangladesh, then you must be active in the Democratic and Republican parties. You must organize fundraisers. You must make your congressman and senator think that you are of great value and importance to him. And I believe the NRB community has now reached that point. It is my view that if the NRBs effectively organize themselves, and here too, regrettably, we see at the drop of a hat, the NRBs are able to fight on pretty much any issue among themselves. You've got to bury the hatchet and really think of the country, your heritage, your homeland, and put these differences behind you to see what you can do. And my view is, certainly it will not take much of an effort for the NRB community to come up with 300 votes in Congress on this bill. It's a matter of how effectively they can organize themselves. Yes, there is a very important role for BGMEA and the Bangladesh government and the embassy also to play. And this is in response to Professor Muin's point about is there an action plan? Well, I have given the government a 14-point action plan to the chief advisor personally. I have briefed him on the importance of this, to the Commerce and Finance advisor, who was very gracious to organize an interministerial meeting to discuss the 14-point action plan, and it is under implementation. The government is taking it seriously. The Foreign Ministry is, I have also briefed the Foreign Affairs advisor on the issue of winning the support of the Africans, or to put it differently, to see that the Africans don't block this bill. There is a lot of work to be done by the government as a whole. This issue which the moderator, my friend Mr. Anisul Haq addressed is a key one, that we also have to get our act together insofar as the issue of labor rights and labor standards are concerned. It's not simply good enough for a dozen factories to say that we've done and fulfilled all the compliance requirements. I think, and this is why my message, for example, to BGME is that you take the lead, get your membership to voluntarily endorse a code on corporate social responsibility for the RMG sector. Take pride in the fact that you are ahead of the rest of the world in terms of what you're doing to improve conditions for your workers. There are, in my view, countless factories that are already doing this, but you need to do this on an industry-wise basis. Most important of all, and here again is an exercise where I believe Bangladesh needs to get its act together. The government, the private sector, BGMEA, and I would say especially important would be civil society, NGOs and the media, is to send a powerful message across to the rest of the world about the success stories in Bangladesh, about the fact that we have, in my view at least, done more in the area of women empowerment than any other developing country in Asia. And this needs to be recognized and rewarded. The number one issue in the United States today, and has been so since 9/11, has been the war on terror. Today there is priority and importance given to Afghanistan and Pakistan. And the United States is willing to do pretty much anything to address this issue in the case of these two countries by way of support and assistance. We need to convey to the US as powerfully as possible that prevention is much better than cure, and that the best way you can really help Bangladesh is in terms of addressing the issue of creating more employment opportunities for women, in terms of helping us economically. That is the best and most effective insurance against the rise of extremist forces in this country. And you need to get this message across through the NRBs, through the government and through the NGOs as effectively as possible. We have used, I must say, to great effect, and hopefully we will have the opportunity to do so again, the powerful voice of Dr. Yunus in the United States. And although our friend from the New Age has left, I should also remind him that it was Hillary Clinton that took Dr. Yunus and introduced him to her fellow senators and congressmen the last time he visited Washington. And he did make this point, with Hillary Clinton by his side, of the importance of this bill, of the duty-free access for Bangladesh. I should say that Anis did raise some important points about the nature and substance of the bill. It is under scrutiny. Dr. Mustafizur Rahman of CPD has been given responsibility to look at the bill in all its aspects and to see if there is a way of making improvements while at the same time not losing sight of the need to provide some degree of protection to the Africans so as to ensure that they don't block the bill. I think that is an important factor which we can't lose sight of, which is why I have said that if we are being offered half a loaf instead of a full loaf, that should not be rejected by us. There is work still to be done. I think both Secretary Industries as well as Mr. Shabir Ahmad also raised a larger issue, which is to say that the RMG sector however important it might be, and it is without question extremely important, is not the only sector we should be focusing on insofar as trade between the US and Bangladesh. There are other opportunities and we must take full advantage. For example, apart from the pharmaceutical sector, which Shabbir referred to at some length, the great success story as far as India and the US is concerned has been in the area of information technology. And I would go one step beyond to say the ICT sector as a whole. Call centers, for example. Well, India, as you know, is now gradually pricing itself out of the call center market. Bangladesh should be positioning itself to take over from India in this area. So there are a great many opportunities available to us, including in the RMG sector. You see, one of the features which has been ignored by us has been the over-concentration in just 8 categories. I think, in a sense, what we need to learn, and we can learn from Mauritius, where very early on they realized that value added was much more important than quantity. So Mauritius today is earning much more through value added garment industries than it was earning through what is popularly known as the bread and butter stuff, t-shirts and shirts and cotton trousers and so on. So we do need to look very seriously at the issue of diversification. My last thoughts are once again addressed to our friends who are here with us from the United States, and a request to them to also pass this on to their friends and relatives who have not been able to join us here in Dhaka for this 3-day event, in particular for our seminar today, is to say they have a very important and vital role to play. We hope the embassy is helping and complementing in this exercise. It's not an easy task, and I know it from my own experience of interacting with the Bangladeshi community, not simply in the US but in other parts of the world. To put them all together in one room and get them to speak with one voice, that's a huge challenge. But I hope that in the larger interest of the country, they will do this. I want to again conclude by thanking the organizers for this organizing this event, all our speakers, the industry secretary, our moderator, Shabbir, and our other friends from the sector, and all of you for being here till 5:10. Thank you, one and all.
We would like to conclude this session today by thanking all of you. Also, our guests from US, NRBs, panelists here, our guests from the embassy, and appreciate your being here. Thank you so much.